like to call Property Management Committee to order. First thing on the agenda is approval of minutes. We call on Commissioner Gabbard.
Read the minutes from our last meeting. Make a motion to be approved.
Got a motion to have a second on that effect.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I think the mayor have an introduction that he'd like.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'd like to make an introduction. We have a new hire that's someone's come to work for the county. Matter of fact, Monday was her first day, and so she's into day 4. We've got Ashley McDonald sitting here next to Deputy Mayor, Mr. Salmon. When we applied for the PIO that you all granted and funded in the budget this year, the Public Information Officer, Ashley applied for the position. She came over from, she was the PIO for the Murfreesboro City Fire Department. And so we're very, very blessed to have her and proud of her, because the time that she left Murfreesboro Fire Department, which was last week, she went to a training seminar in Emmitsburg, Maryland, okay, and there she earned her master's degree, so she is now the first MPIO in the state of Tennessee, so she's a master's PIO, and also just a few weeks ago she was at the national convention and she was elected to be and is now the national president of the National Presidents PIO Association. So we're very glad to have her on board, and she's going to be representing all of our departments. She's going to be the one voice for Rutherford County and everything that we're doing, primarily working with all of our first responders, and then when we're not having some type of an emergency, she's going to be working and helping change the thinking paradigm of our waste stream, working with our schools, talking about recycling. So we're just excited to have her here, so make her welcome.
All right,
And also we have another person working in our office, right? Have you been introduced yet?
I don't think to this meeting, of course, but I've been introduced to the others.
Okay, so Rachel Lehue is, after we all missed Vicki very much and we went through many, many interviews, and Rachel, we were able to steal her away from Ted Beatty next door at the trustee's office, and she's worked there for 12 years working with our senior citizens on the tax freeze for our seniors. But we're pleased to have her on board, and she's doing a great job. This is week 2,
Yeah.
second week, so she'll be working for you, your go-to person in the mayor's office, as same as Vicki was. So anything that you need, just contact Rachel, and she'll be there for you. So we're very, very glad to have her, and I just want to say thank you to Ted Beatty for letting her go, because his attitude was right for a constitutional officer to say what's best for the employee, what's best for Rutherford County, not about him and his department. And so he definitely encouraged her to take this position to work for the county commission, so we're glad to have her as well. So make her welcome. One more thing is that Becky is going to be leaving us, okay, after all these years. How long, Becky?
Over 30.
30 years she's been taking the minutes of all of our standing committees, and so now Rachel's training, she's got her training wheels on, she's going to go through the whole series, but Becky's done an excellent job, and we'll honor you properly at the time for you to exit. But she's ready to travel and enjoy herself, and so we'll do something. All right, so.
You know, I did that 8.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I just never left.
You just I know.
Just kept coming to the meetings.
I know, but you've done an excellent job, but thank you
second
for
retirement.
all yours. Huh?
It's her second retirement.
Second retirement, that's right.
That's right.
Second retirement, so we'll honor you twice.
all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Next on the agenda is update on courthouse renovations.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I guess you can see the scaffolding and everything that's going on around the courthouse. We picked up the color of the pavers. They'll probably start picking up the pavers next week. Ben, you want to come on up here and sit with me and help me go through the process so we can give the committee an update on what we're doing with painting all the two annex offices on each side of the main building. The annexes were built in 1960 compared to 1859, so we're trying to match it. Those guys are just hand painting every mortar joint on the two extensions. We should have a sample on the downspouts. They've already done all the pressure washing. They'll be painting the columns and fixing the columns. The pavers, they're going to start on the east side, so we'll have that done and out of the way for the Halloween, all the trick-or-treaters, and for Christmas with Santa Claus coming. So that'll be done and out of the way, and then we'll do the landscaping, et cetera. But Ben, you want to talk about some other issues on our roof? We do have an issue on our roof.
On this building.
Yes, sir, on this building, and it's serious. So Ben, why don't you explain to the members what our problem is on the roof?
Okay, so the current roof that's up there, it's 25 years old this year. It's at the end of its life, and so anyway, we've had a pretty bad leak in the northwest corner now. It's actually gone on for several years, and we've patched at it. And so I called the roofing consultant that we use to design all of our roofs. He came down last week or week before last, and so he brought a representative from Southern Roofing, which is that's probably our go-to roofer right now for repairs. And anyway, he gave us a couple of proposals. He can do the first thing that he said is he could do kind of an emergency repair, that just kind of a coating, try to stop it from leaking, and that basically would get us by some time till maybe the next budget year to replace that. And so that emergency repair was going to be for a place on this corner, and this corner was going to be $19,000. And then there's also a problem on that canopy that's the little balcony around the.
So I'm talking with Ben when he shared those numbers with me, Chairman, members of the committee. I just had a hard time spending $20,000 if it's only going to be for 6 months, until we get into the next budget year, or 8 months, whatever it's going to be. That just didn't seem like a good business decision to spend $20,000 and come in 8 months later and rip it off, and so go into the replacement of the problem areas.
I'm sorry.
No, no.
Well, they can cut out another one of the options that they gave us was they can cut out all the wet areas and replace that. That could buy a couple years maybe. That's $43,000 repair. And so I called today, and this is strictly a budget number, but we're talking about using a 30-year, 90 mil thick rubber roof, and this is a complete replacement, coatings, everything. And so he said that the number could potentially be $425,000 to $450,000 to replace the entire roof on the wings and the canopy that goes around the outside of the edge. That's what like I say, that was a number that they came up with today. Hopefully it would be $350,000, but it's probably going to be well over $300,000.
So over where IT's located, they've got a couple of trash cans, and they've been, collecting water and whatever's leaking in. So the other option is do nothing. Let's just keep catching the water and wait and get it into next year's budget. But if we're trying to repair the courthouse and get it back to something that's going to last us another 25 or 30 years, I would rather, in my opinion, my recommendation would be let's just keep catching water. And it is a concrete roof, right?
Concrete deck, yes.
It's got a concrete deck. So I'm thinking we just wait till we get into budget.
Is the $400,000 just a problem area, or is it the whole?
No.
That would be a whole.
That's
whole roof,
replacing
that'd be a whole
the
roof.
wings, all the upper roof, and then the canopy. The canopy that goes around the outside is, I don't know, it's 3 foot wide, and it's got a rubber roof around there, and it's actually sloped back towards the roof. And then the water that hits the canopy comes back to the roof. And so they've always kind of felt like the holes where it comes through the wall has always been a problem since on this last roof that we put on. It's been a problem pretty much since the detail of it. And it's not a huge footprint. It's just an incredibly tricky roof to work on. You know, it's got so many different types of surface to adhere to.
HVACs are located up there.
Yes, sir. And we've got the new lighting that'll be going up there, and so that's probably not going to do the whole roof much. That's not going to help it out much either when they start working on that. So
What's the bottom line on your recommendation?
It's up to this committee, but I have to go on whatever direction we go. I'm struggling with paying $19,000, almost $20,000 to let it last for 6 or 8 months. So either we do the 43 or we wait, and that'll give us 2 years down the road, or we go with, I'd like to hear y'all's opinion, or we go with the whole roof next year bonded.
the 43, that's potentially a 2-year repair. That's replacing everything that's wet right now with new material.
Well, what's the most prudent thing to do conservatively?
It's a chunk of money, but we spend the 400,000 or whatever it may be, but that's going to last us way beyond our years.
It's a 30-year roof.
30-year roof, so that would.
Is that the warranty that they have on it? A 30-year?
Yes, sir.
warranty?
On the 90 mil thick roof, we could do a 60 mil thinner roof. It'd be about 10% less, but it's a 20-year warranty or 25-year warranty on that. And so the 90 mil, that's the engineering fee. They're going to do a lot of walking pads up there, because we've got so much equipment on the roof. That's, foot traffic is always a huge problem when you start putting air conditioners on a roof.
So you think that'd be the most prudent thing to do for a 30-year roof?
That's the roof that I would like to use. I mean, that's what's been recommended to me by the people that.
Penny wise and pound foolish to do a Band-Aid patch.
If we spend 43 and get 2 years out of it, then we're going to have to rip that off and put another roof on at 450,000, or we just keep on doing 43. But it could get worse.
I'm not as opposed to the 19, Mr. Mayor, if I may speak.
Sure, go ahead.
We're talking up to 450, which is 75-80% of the entire overall budget.
Yes, sir.
It's a tremendous, I say, change order, percentage-wise, without having a little more thoughtful process. 19 would safe up the building, safe up the employees for some months to allow us to, do we need to have competitive bids? We had a contractor look at it, do we need a engineer to look at it?
Well, that's who the engineer came
With the
with,
contractor.
and he brought a contractor, and he brought the
Okay.
contractor that we use, and so.
Is competitive bid required?
Yes, sir.
Would we put it,
Yes.
so do we need to get the 19 to safe up the building while we go through the process of?
Well,
request
I
proposal?
guess we need to ask that question. Since it's got a concrete deck, do you feel to get through this winter, ice and water and rain, could we get through? We've got through 2 years with it being in the same condition and nothing's been done. The former commission didn't do anything about it. Could we get through this year and not spend anything and then just address it next year's budget? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
Well, how much damage is it causing? The water going through wherever it's going to be leaking in IT? I mean,
It's
is it
up on-
every-
well, it's in the drone area.
The GIS. GIS. And so it's, I mean,
Sorry.
it's not necessarily doing a lot of damage to the.
It's not dripping down on computers or anything. It's not like our server, you know, right?
But we can't keep ceiling tiles up. I mean, it's where the last air conditioner that we put up there, it's right there where it sits, is where the biggest problem was. And so that's where it's found its way through the deck of the roof. It's certainly not doing it any good, but it's concrete, so it's not just taking it away. It's not good for it, but it's weakening it.
Yeah, but we're looking at moving IT, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
So therefore, if we move them out from that area, it'll be vacant.
We're hoping in 6 months
Right.
we'll have them. We'll get that on the agenda later, but in 6 months, PBA told us that they think that they can get us over into the old judicial building and we'll get them moved out within the next 6 to 7 months.
Is it causing any kind of mold or mildew?
Not to my knowledge, no. Not inside. I mean, it could be under the deck, because there's a lot of wet area underneath the deck. But I don't see anything inside the building, because it's wide open. You know, the ceiling's open, it's just falling straight to the floor.
It's very detrimental to concrete to have that kind of penetration. It starts getting into your, whatever you're tensioning with, if it's rebar
Right.
or whatever the reinforcing is. I just think we need to do the 19 amount. We need to get this thing safed up so that we can productively
And then go
make
back.
the best decision. It's not
Ready.
impulsive, and it may be a change order, because while you've got contractors here, it may be the most effective way to.
Sure.
But that's just my initial thoughts.
One possibility on the emergency type repair is on the southwest corner. That includes some repair on the southwest corner, and I don't think that's actively leaking in that. And so that could save about $5,000 off of that $19,000.
Was there a third component part of the cupola, or was it part of the parapet wall? I thought there were 3 components to the
There's 3
19.
components to the 19. There's the southwest corner, the northwest corner,
the worst.
and then the canopy. Is the canopy
Is
where
that over the parapet wall?
well, it's out in front of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's out in front of it. And so then that's fixing some of the scupper, where the scuppers, where it's running, the water runs back to the roof. It's probably 2.5 feet long, and so that was a really hard detail, and it always has been, to try to waterproof that deep of a hole. And so I think we may be able to save a little bit if we don't we could hold off on that corner, I guess, and see and hope that it doesn't start leaking.
What compelled you to pick that corner then? Is there,
The roof slopes, the roof slopes west.
so just the conditions would suggest,
That's what both
The
of the
scupper,
drains are on these corners.
that's the drain in the south corner?
No,
That's the
The bathroom in the north
north
corner?
corner.
From the inside? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. It's pretty bad.
So 19,000 would take care of all 3.
Well, now he says could be 5,000 less. So
It could be 5,000 less if we don't do this corner over here, because it's not an active leak. It looks bad, but it's not actively leaking.
14 to 19,000. Depends on how that is.
Right.
Is it a motion required to send it to budget, or to
Yes,
send
sir.
it to,
I think we need to get,
would it go to budget?
Well, the 19, I can find that in my budget.
Yeah, I get ready to say
Look at that
he
in his
can pull
budget,
that
not
money
just-
and say like emergency project out of his budget to go ahead and do
he
it.
can go up to 25
Yeah.
in his budget.
We changed that to where you could spend up to
On an emergency
25,000 on
basis.
emergency, so wouldn't be no problem for him to go ahead and do it.
You don't have to get bids or anything, so,
Or a motion, or anything?
well,
We're just bringing it to your attention.
just bring it to your attention but I'd like to have the committee's nod to tell him to go ahead and do it.
I say we go ahead and do it myself.
I would support,
If you want to form a motion on that?
Yes, sir, I'd
Let's
really like
do
to
a
have.
motion on it.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
roll call on it.
I need a motion for
I'll make a motion to spend up to $20,000. A motion to hit your budget within your confines to make the repairs you think necessary so that we can
study.
have time to absorb such a big repair.
Big hit, and look at it next year's budget.
You got it?
Second.
I'm getting it now. Thank
We
you.
got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not,
Are
call
you good
the
with
roll.
that?
Yes, sir. Whatever you want me to do, take care of it.
Does it make sense professionally to you?
That was about $100,000 more than what I was
Okay.
expecting to hear.
Okay.
But
Makes me feel-
I knew it was going to be, high, on the high side, just by the way
I
we
think we spent
approached it.
$200,000 on the roof for that corn building over there several years ago. And we were in there, we ended up selling or tearing down or something, but we had to do it
Yeah.
at that time. I remember that because all the commissioners griped and complained, and we didn't have no choice but to spend it, which was a couple $100,000, and it's nowhere near the difficulty than the roof on this courthouse. So the $450,000 did surprise me on this roof.
One question. You did say that you got this in your line item budget for,
That's
to take care of.
the 20,000. I can.
So you wouldn't be
cover
coming to the budget committee?
No, sir.
Okay,
No,
no
sir.
additional money?
that. No, sir.
You want to call the roll?
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd.
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner David Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
and Commissioner McAdoo.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, you can think of it like this, and next year when we do it, and in 30 years, that'll be in 2050.
You are, you want to be.
We don't have to worry about that.
So we have another commission and be worried about it.
If the drought keep going on, we might make it to.
So far.
I'm sure McAdoo will still be here.
Hey, I hope you're right. Okay. Next on the agenda, update on old judicial building. Request funding for old judicial building.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, we've turned that over to the PBA. PBA, what, Ben, you want to give us the rundown that you shared with me this morning, the dates
Okay.
of what the PBA is prepared to do and what timeline we're looking at?
Okay, so the Mike Picklesheimer and Britt Murphy they're sending out an RFP to a list of 6 contractors, and they're also advertising it on some website. And so we're going to have a pre-bid meeting on the 24th, and this includes the archives project as well as they can bid on either or both of the projects.
PBA felt we might attract more contractors if we gave them the choice of doing one or both. So it's either or, and, you can do one or both, contracts at the same time, because, John, what was our total on the renovation for archives?
Ben has the exact
I've got
number.
it
We're
right-
looking
I've
at
got it
about
right
2
here.
million.
I'm going to go ahead and finish
Go
this
ahead,
timeline. So
please.
the 24th is a pre-bid meeting with all the potential contractors, and then the bids will be submitted on the 31st, and then so I'll get those bids to the members of the PBA. Then they have a meeting on the 7th, and that's when they'll begin their selection. And that's when they'll begin their selection. It may be. I talked to Mr. Picklesheimer today, and he said that it potentially could be the beginning of December before they actually award a contract or both contracts. And so do you want me to go ahead and talk
Yes,
about
sir.
the dollars? And so
This is a monetary request, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
this is the judicial building repurposing, and so we're requesting $300,000, or I'm sorry,
$3 million.
$3 million in funding for the construction. and they've added $400,000 for soft cost, $650,000 for IT equipment. That's the security doors, cameras, the new wiring, and then we've added $150,000 for furniture and fixtures for a total of $4.2 million for that project. And so the archives building, it's the same, this timeline is exactly the same on the archives building. The architectural drawings are complete, the city's signed off on everything. And so we're looking on that project, the construction cost is estimated at $1.9 million. The soft cost is $124,000 for architectural fees, engineering fees. $73,000 for the IT equipment, the card readers, cameras, the additional wiring, and then the fixtures are $225,000, and that's for the additional shelving that's going to be required. And so that request will be $2,354,000.
So you're talking about both projects around 6.3 million, where that neighborhood?
6.54.
6.5. Any questions, committee members?
Talked to Lisa as far as funding this. She said we'll probably go back to the market, didn't she, Steve, in the spring, for bonding on this, and this is how that she wants to carry out both these projects.
Would you just refresh from memory as far as on the old Judicial Center building, what departments would that take care of?
First and second floor, and there again, we have a timeline. That's why we're in a crunch. The timeline, if you know, the probation is located down here on West Main Street.
Right.
Chancellor Wilson and his partner have sold that building to a firm out of California. So we're supposed to be out of there by July 1. So that's cutting close, even with this timeline. I mean, we're going to be right on that timeline of trying to get them over there. So probation will occupy the first and second floor of the old judicial building. We don't have anything planned at this point for the third floor, but floors 4 and 5 will move IT into that location. All of IT except for the TV room and the downstairs server. Is that correct? Yes. Next to Brian's office will be the only thing left here from IT. So they'll totally occupy the 4th and 5th floor.
Does the third floor get any attention?
We're upgrading the bathrooms. We're going to go ahead and upgrade the bathrooms to be ADA compliant.
In this project.
And the elevators still?
Elevators too.
Sir?
Yeah, I was getting ready to say we have no choice on that. That elevator got to have some work, if I recall.
They're very slow.
Yeah.
So are there 7 floors?
No,
Just 5?
Any more questions?
I had 2.3 in my notes. Was it just a lack of soft cost, or had we not?
Which project? I'm sorry.
The judicial building.
Oh,
Maybe
judicial building. I think
we may have added a floor since we talked back in spring.
Yeah. What
We had
It's 2.85.
2.85 is what?
pushing 3.
Without furniture and fixtures, and without the cabling on the IT and all that.
Okay, y'all did alert us to the IT was coming.
So that's what
pretty big.
And
pushed that, yeah.
the architect, or the PBA rounded that 2.85 up to 3 million, and then they added the 400,000 for soft costs, for engineering.
450 for IT, 150 for F&E.
650 for IT.
Okay.
And 150.
All right, that's where I'm at.
That's how we got to the 4.2.
If you'll recall, it had, from the time that this commission took office this time last year, we were at 4.6 million. And by the time we talked back in the spring, when we said we're just going to cap it at 2.85, it had escalated from Gresham Smith to 7.2 million, and that's when we put the brakes on and said, no, we're just going to do paint, carpet, and whatever we can do. We're not going to go in and totally renovate the entire building. So coming in at this 4.2, I think is, we're still going to get what we want, as opposed to the 7.2 million.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did we not already allocate some money in this budget for this project previously?
I don't believe money was allocated.
I
We
think
just-
it was talked about
talked about
and
it.
set aside as far as a number, but we haven't actually.
We set aside that 2.8, but we didn't put any funds in it.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. That we kind of allocated to something.
Yeah.
Of course,
Pay some soft costs, I guess, haven't you? Have you paid some architect?
We've just signed a contract.
That's what that was.
So
Architect.
what we're looking for, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, is a positive recommendation to send it on to budget, let budget,
But
determine.
we have no choice. We need to go ahead and move on these two projects. I'll say holding us up. Been talking about these two projects for a year, or better.
We beat them up pretty hard.
And they're holding us up. The archive building is holding us up on the new judicial building, which need more space to move archives so they can clear out some storage over there. IT, you hear they getting rained on upstairs or whatever. They need more space. So I don't see any solution but to move on with it. Send it to budget and let them go with it.
you need a motion to that
I
effect.
need a motion to that effect.
I will so move. We move forward with this project. Becky, you're good. Both of y'all are good at writing these motions that I make.
Yes, sir.
So do your thing.
Second.
So who's on budget?
Yeah, we're on
Mr.
Bouger.
Bedard, make sure you.
We're on Bouger, so.
I think we can support it.
Okay, all right.
You're sending a positive recommendation. Sending a positive recommendation.
Yes, yes.
Any more discussion on?
Do you want to read it for her? Please, ma'am.
Approve the projects as presented and forward to the Budget Committee with a positive recommendation.
Oh, you did good.
That's on the judicial building and the archive building, right? Both of them, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any more discussion on it? Not, call the roll.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner David Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
and Commissioner McAdoo.
Yes. Okay, that moves us down to 5, request advance funding for community care renovation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Of course, let me remind you that back in the late 90s, through the infinite wisdom of the county commission kind of set community care of Rutherford County up separately. We used to totally control it. We made it independent. Commissioner Cook sits on that board with myself. We made it, at that point in time, late 90s, said either sink or swim. So it's done a very good job of swimming. However, the building still belongs to us. So our responsibility is that building. So I was able to go, had Terry prepare all the information, and we went to the Christy Houston Foundation back in the fall, in the spring, and we were able to get a $650,000 grant, which is a matching grant, and Christy Houston will pay that grant over a 3-year period, a third, okay? So Christy Houston had given us money in years past to help us renovate one wing and then again another wing, I believe, and you remember the year? Yeah, the last renovation. Anderson Contracting did the last renovation. But anyway, so this will be the last section of the nursing home that still has never been renovated. You know, going back to the 60s, I would assume. So we're trying to bring it up and make it comparable to the other two, because when you check your mom or dad, aunt or brother, whoever, they all want to go in the newer wings. Nobody wants to go in the older section. It's just reality. You don't want to put your family in there.
Yo, you don't mind going to the other section too?
No. We used to put guards, gates up at the door, like a jail,
Yeah.
many years ago.
That's when it was a poorhouse.
Yeah.
It was called a poorhouse.
Yeah, they call it old folks home. That's what it's called.
Yeah. They did have bars on the doors.
Yeah, they did.
When I was in high school, they did.
I saw pictures of it.
So
They
anyway,
put bars up.
Ben, as we talked about in the budget, Ben has got Rob now well-versed and taken a lot of the heat off of himself. So in the budget, we allocated more money for Ben to shift over and start being our eyes and ears in the PBA. Okay, because on the new judicial building, we had Jerry, who worked with Gresham Smith and Bell Construction and the day-to-day. So that's what Ben will be doing. He's going to be our eyes and ears and working on all of our projects, both the courthouse, archives, whatever the other buildings that we have, while Rob's going to take care of the other and making sure that those tasks are taken care of. So Ben's been working, gathering information on the renovation of this project. Talking with Lisa, we'll probably just borrow from ourselves on this project, because it's not a large amount of money that we have to match with the Christy Houston Foundation. But I'll let her explain that when we get the budget. Ben, you want to explain to the committee where we're at?
May I?
Go ahead, sir.
You just have to refresh. We funded the roof over the course of the last few months. We've been doing the
That's
roof.
correct. That's right.
What is our expenditure there? And
We're looking probably $150,000 in new roof replacement, and then $50,000 in repairs, and then there's a little bit of soft cost, maybe $25,000 in soft cost associated with that.
250, 275.
Something in there, yes, sir.
Is that roof over the new, what we want, the old section that we're wanting to
That's part of the repair. That roof is, the roof over the section that we're after is actually, a lot of it is still under warranty, and so the project was delayed. We were waiting on the manufacturer to see what kind of deal we were going to get on the warranty before we could really do the scope of work. And so the architects, I'm not sure that we still know that yet. It's the same engineers actually that looked at this building. And so we're still kind of waiting on a hard project to bid, because we don't know how far the warranty's going. But it's part of the repairs over the roof over this section that may be under warranty, but the replacement is not. It's a different section. So.
We're waiting on warranty results.
Just to see what they're going to do. Yes, sir. It's warranted till 2026. And so we toured the wing the other day. It's F and G. It's block walls. It's concrete block walls and terrazzo, or not terrazzo. It's just a VCT tile. They're talking about they're going to renovate the showers and the bathrooms, covering the walls, replacing some ceiling. The for where the project's at right now, we met with the people at the Community Care and the architect this week. He said it's going to take him about 3 weeks to get us a stamp drawing ready. There's some electrical work, and then after they get that stamp drawing, then they have to send it to the Department of Health, and that for them their approval, and they have to look at flame spread of the paint, and it's a whole different animal than what I'm familiar with.
Curtains, furniture, anything that goes in there.
Everything.
It's held at a higher standard.
So
Fire retardant.
Yes.
that could take a month before we get after they send the plans to the state. He said that could take 4 weeks before we get that back. This money has to be, the project has to be started before the end of this calendar year. Or I don't know whether they lose it or they have to go request it again.
We'll have to request it back, Christie Houston.
We're talking about maybe bidding this project out, and while the state still is pending their approval, but we'll go ahead and bid it out and let the contractors know up front that there could potentially be some changes coming back from the state, just to make sure that we can get this done within this calendar year. So it's going to be
Now, we
it's a
had,
tight schedule.
a couple of years ago, we had an architect to come and stay the weekend, and it was a lot of things that he found out, the way they put the commodes in, the way they put the showers in, where you could get to the patients and handle them better. So, before Terry came.
It's Mike Picklesheimer is actually, he has the drawings, and so he's the one he's the architect on this project. We're not doing it through the PDA, so.
Okay.
So we'll have to bid this out.
You might mention that to him. He might have some paperwork on that too.
Okay. I think Jim Bailey has done some work out
I forgot
there.
who it was.
Jim Bailey was architect.
Was it?
Oh, that's his name on that brass plaque outside the
Okay.
cafeteria.
Commissioner Johnson?
What action do we need to take to expedite this, to make sure that the window of opportunity is not shut down?
You're going to have to help me with this.
Okay.
This money, we're matching 1/4. The county's going to match 1/4 of the Eastern.
1/3, isn't it?
1/3.
Okay, so we're needing to, I guess, need permission for them to borrow this, to allocate this money.
Yeah, I think when we get to budget, I think if we just get an approval to move forward and let budget, Lisa will come in and share with budget how she wants to handle this internally from borrowing from herself, and then she'll pull down the money from Christie Houston and set it up to where we have the money, but we didn't want to deplete our rainy day fund. The nursing home has about 1.1 million in the rainy day fund, and so we talked about going to the bank, and they said there's no sense in doing that and paying 3-4% interest or 8% interest, whatever it may be. We just borrow because it's our building. We'll borrow from ourselves, and we can set it up and draw it down. But we'll let the finance committee figure that out with her recommendation.
Christie Houston is granting $650
That's
our
609.
609.
and we're somewhere 203,000 would be our,
Yes.
and would 600 plus thousand complete the renovation?
They're
Well,
they're
I'm sorry,
requesting,
800,000 to complete the renovation?
they're on their budget, or their capital requirements. They're asking, the number that they've got on this sheet is $1,131,000, and I'm assuming that's the balance of what Christie Houston will dole out over the next 2 years, plus.
this year and 2 more years, so it's a period of 3 years that they'll give us. But Terry has put some things in there that we have to discuss at the next community care meeting. She's got things in there that we were not expecting: security system upgrade, phone system upgrade, commercial washing machines and dryers, HVAC, which was not anticipated. So we'll have to go in and pare that down and just tell her this is how much money we have to operate with, and let that board make that decision.
Because that can be upgraded later.
That's correct. We, you know, if it's not, as Ben was saying this morning, if it's not going to wear out this year, then we can put off a new washer and dryer for a couple of years. Or if the HVAC is not ready to, he's going to go out and look and see. We don't even know who's been doing semi-annual maintenance on those units. I know they've got 2 guys that work out there, but
They've got some good guys that
Yeah.
work. We just don't know.
we just don't know.
Yeah.
Commissioner Johnson?
Roughly what would be the liability part for the county then? Can you just?
Dollars.
Dollar figure?
Otherwise.
They've got a capital outlay loan request of $1,131,170. The total budget, including the Christie Houston money, or the total money, the funds that they say they have available, is $1,740,000. The total expenditure of this project appears to be $1,334,000. That's with all of the extra equipment. I was thinking that we were just going to match the 609.
That's what we should look at and refer on the budget, is matching the 609,058.
But
What Christie used to give us.
plus, we'll have to advance them to years 2 and 3.
That's correct.
So that they can go ahead and continue with the project. And so it's about $1 million in construction cost, and then they've got, for the furniture, equipment, and window treatments, is $122,742, and then they've got a fire alarm. They're needing to replace a fire alarm. That's $111,664. I would recommend that if they're going to do that fire alarm anytime in the near future, they need to do that while this is under construction, so they're not messing up new finishes. And they're going to have to send it to that'll have to go through the state as well, so that could delay that project pretty good, so.
Are they allowed to borrow money? There's something about borrowing money.
Who's that?
Community care. There's something about borrowing money. I don't remember
We'll
what
have to
it
look at
is.
that. We'll have to look at that lease and talk to Mr. Cole, our attorney, and I guess our accounting firm. They can answer that question. But for tonight's request, I think if we just match the 609,058,
This 1.1.
send that on the budget.
1.23.
So we're matching it,
609.
Christie used
We match it.
grant.
the entire
Match Christie.
609 or a portion of the
Lisa
609?
explained it to me. I'm
No,
sorry,
I think we need to just go ahead and match the 609.
I'm sorry. I can't.
in entirety,
Repeat it
because
back, I'm afraid.
once we send it out and they start building it, and we'll have an intergovernmental agreement set up between the board and the county, and we just pay them $200 and
Okay, over the 3-year period.
$200-some thousand every year until we pay them back over a 3-year period.
I'll move to accept the match, fund the match, and send back the budget.
Got a motion here, second. Second, Commissioner Cook, any more discussion? Not call roll.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner David Damon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda is update on One Stop Building, and hopefully we're not spending more money tonight.
Yes, sir, we're still waiting on, everything's been approved at the city, everything, we have sent our MOU with what we want to charge the state per square foot. The lady who we sent it to, the Department of Safety, the Assistant Commissioner sent it down to the Stream and General Services. They've got to send it, they're waiting on space needs analysis to come from the Department of Safety for them to verify what their space needs are based on the square footage that we're requesting to charge them per square foot in that agreement. The way the state works,
Yeah.
It could be 6 months, so this is just an update. But we're closer to where we were this time last month.
About months.
By 1 or 2 sentences, that they've sent it back up there for the space needs analysis, so I don't know.
Commissioner Johnson?
It's frustrating.
Mayor, did you amend the cost per square foot in the MOU you were talking about?
Nick Christensen did and talked with them, yes, sir. And I think that might help expedite it. We were looking at $21. We estimated $21.50, something like that. Right, Steve?
Yeah.
I think that gave them some heartburn a little bit.
For Class A, because the state's not used to spending more than $10 or $12 a square foot for,
21? We're getting that,
I'm sorry,
are we getting 21?
we would like to get 21 for Class A, but I don't
They
think,
developed some heartburn over
I
that.
don't,
Yeah, I think that's too,
I don't think we're going to get it because the properties, I think we can go for $13 to $15 a square foot. Because
21.
we're actually getting the property, the city's donating the property to us for 99 years for $1. So we don't have that internal cost to be figured into what normal builder would have to figure in what his Class A square footage rate would be. So we think we can, that seemed to entice her, but we threw out that $21 first, and now she thinks she's getting a bargain, and it might speed up the process.
Class A in that area though is $20 to $30.
really?
So.
But that's
we're
not cost included.
Well, that's true. So I mean, I think making them a deal, so, we'll see what they say.
Okay, any more questions?
That was just a FYI.
Okay. Okay, next, update on Old Bank and Coin Building.
Yes, sir, we've got a firm that's coming in today. I'll let Mr. Samlin give us an update. We've got one firm coming to look at it tomorrow. We've got two.
We got 4 total, I can say right back there, but we got 4 total companies looking at it. 3 is wanting to do, well, actually 2 is wanting to do a revitalize it, redo it, and put in a business in there. We've got one that's wanting to do restaurants and commercial on the bottom, and maybe living space on top. And so there's a number of things, but anyway, we've got 4 looking at it, strong, and one may want to just tear it down and build something new. So we're showing it to them all and seeing what they say.
I did find out Saturday in talking to Greg Tucker, our county historian, he did say that to pass along to them that it would qualify for the new resolution that this county commission passed, that it would qualify because the bank was built in 1925, so it would enjoy the historical tax abatement if somebody wants to take advantage of that and redo it. The bones on that building are still good, but it's and a lot of them got excited about the 2-3 vaults that are in there. They think it'd be a nice wine cellar for an attraction inside a restaurant, high-end restaurant. But the 2 restaurants that want to go in there, they come with deep pockets. They're well funded and well organized.
And through GNRC here this last week also, that there's some funding available out there if they want to apply and get some grant money. So we got some good folks looking.
We just want to put it back on tax roll.
Yeah.
That's our.
Yeah.
That's our.
How much have we spent the night we need?
Yes, sir.
Sounds good. You'll keep us updated on that. Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, discussion of cleaning the new parking garage.
Ben.
Okay, I'll just kind of give you a rundown where we're at on that. I have a grounds maintenance crew, and they police it for trash daily, vandalism, graffiti, fire extinguisher theft, and depending on the arrival time, if they can get there in time, they'll blow it out, sweep it, so to speak, with blowers. They clean the elevator, mop it probably a couple times a week. But what we're up against, on the 17th of September, there was 3 fire extinguishers stolen, discharged, broke one of the alarm boxes. We've got security footage of the kids doing it. We've talked to the police about it. And then this past weekend, the 21st, 6 kids got stuck on the elevator. They were jumping up and down, and they set off a safety, some kind of a safety on it. Got stuck, called the police, the fire department got there before I guess we were even notified, and prised the door open. And so Monday, Otis had to come and reset the elevator, put the doors back on track. We've talked to Otis about maybe putting some kind of controls on the elevator so it'll shut off at 7 at night, start back up at 7 in the morning. They're looking into that. I'd really like to consider some way that we could lock the whole garage off at sometime at night and open it up in the morning. There's crowds of sometimes hundreds up there on the weekends on the roof, and it's like a car show, and they're up on the top of the walls and everything else. And so
It's a matter of time before some kid falls off of there, showing off because they get up and walk around the perimeter of the building. It may come to the point where this committee just makes a decision to put in the card reader with the arms, and unless you've got one, you don't get in. You're gonna get complaints, but it's, everything's got to be considered with that parking garage.
And we were looking at that card.
Yes, sir, we did.
Did we get any feedback from it, like calls to?
I thought we did one meeting.
Dave, you remember?
We had 2 or 3 different costs.
We did. We basically didn't do anything at the time because we were, taking off the lines and making more room, which maintenance has already done that. Benion's already done that. And, what y'all put back in 9 more spots or something like that?
it seems like it was more than that. It might have been a few. I can't remember exactly.
Which was in the design, that they took off and restriped and put those spaces back in. So if you want to look at that, we can pull those numbers back up and see what you want to do there. I think Ben was talking about putting a time frame when it closes, or put a closing time frame on it and running a screen across it, or some kind of border across it to where cars can't enter after a certain time.
I'm afraid that the foot traffic going to the roof in the evening could be just as bad as the cars going up there. I mean, the guys that stole the fire extinguishers and discharged them, they just walked up there. They're on bicycles. And so,
If you have a gate at the vehicle entrance, can you still get into the garage?
there's a little vestibule where the elevator is that we would have to figure out how to close that as well. They could still, I guess, get over the wall, but
It's only so high.
yeah, we could put a fence or something up there. I mean, I hate to deface it with a bunch of security
I hate to do it,
stuff, but it's really a problem. I mean, they're pulling a couple bags of garbage out of there just about every morning, and so.
Somebody would get hurt even worse.
that garage basically was built for the new judicial building, so it wouldn't bother us or the commission. If you set a time frame on opening and closing, like 7 in the morning, 7 in the evening, that force them back down to this parking garage here if they need to be uptown. So I don't think that would bother any commission if we did it.
We thought about just chaining it off, but then if they were up there on foot, then the police wouldn't even be able to drive up there to check. It's all on the roof.
Yeah, but we could put up signs, open, close, open at 7, close at 7. Anybody found in here would be prosecuted for trespassing or something like that. And if the police would arrest a couple of people doing that, the word get out, I'm pretty sure it would stop. So we could do something like that, but I think we probably need to move on with looking at opening at 7, closing at 7, till we get a handle on that parking garage, because if we don't, it's an accident way back.
How much graffiti have you already raised?
There for a while, it was probably once a week, they would have to paint over something. It wasn't anything bad so far, but it's just, we still have to go up there and paint over it. But it's slowed, that graffiti part of it has slowed down, and we hadn't had any vandalism. We've probably replaced 30 fire extinguishers, and that kind of went away, but then it showed back up within the past week or so.
Do we need to put cameras up?
There are cameras.
We have cameras.
We have cameras.
Okay.
Matter of fact, one person went up there and changed your oil with the oil pan underneath it. And he was a county employee.
Oh, man.
We saw him on,
So I don't know,
They got record.
I don't know what we need to do to move
He was
forward. on that,
reprimanded.
but-
One thing, can we get
Clean it up.
those prices back and put the gate, bring it up for our next meeting maybe?
Okay, and can we look at the cost of opening and closing during that time frame?
We can.
Bring it back to the next meeting?
It would, if it had a big garage door on it, it wouldn't hurt my feelings, just to stop, just
Yeah.
to keep everybody out there.
Why don't you look at that and bring it back at the next meeting?
I will, yes, sir.
Get more discussion on on the parking garage. Okay, next on the agenda, discussion of custodial services at the new judicial building.
Ben,
Okay, so we had a cleaning service that started when we opened, maybe a few months after when we opened the building. Never really did work out, but we ended up having to terminate them on the 19th of July for security reasons. And so we started rotating our part-time people in and out of there, try to cover it for this time frame. And we've had ads run for about 2.5 months trying to find some qualified.
it's just so tough right now because unemployment is so low.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do the dirty jobs of cleaning the restrooms and anything else, and so I've asked Ben to come to you all to see if we could go back. He can't get enough people to come in. That's a monster of a building. I mean, it's just the lobby itself is huge, and so we've got automatic buffers and floor cleaners and et cetera, and they're not using it. Two of our maintenance people were down on their hands and knees trying to wipe down that entire lobby floor, which is, I think we're at that point. We just need to put out a bid and try to get another JLL or Lee Company. They're now into the business of janitorial type services. We got to find somebody to clean that building. I mean, Melissa was actually placing Cheerios around in her office, in the court clerk's office, and come back the next morning and they hadn't been vacuumed up. And the Cheerios stayed there for even weeks on end. So you see they're not vacuuming and sucking up those Cheerios.
Yeah, that building's pretty, Ben can recall when I came to him, I went over on some business one day and came back. When I came out of the building, I just couldn't go home. I went over, actually came over here and had Ben and I talked. There was just places over there that aren't clean. That's a hard place to clean though, but you have to have somebody good over it that knows what they're doing.
It's a beautiful building and we don't need to start falling into disrepair.
Well, we can't have that. The reason I had to put on the agenda, Commissioner Johnson and I attended a function over there in one of the courtrooms. And it was pretty bad for that building to be as new as it is, and the dirt and stuff that we saw and marks on the wall and floors, and it was terrible. So I
It's
think
a lot of traffic. I mean,
Yeah.
It's
I don't know what AA Burt's doing actually, but I think we probably do need to put out bids for professional cleaning crew.
that's all I'm asking is just let me have Ben go ahead and put that out to bid, and we try to get another professional cleaning service in there.
Well, I'll make that motion.
Do we need a motion to that effect?
I'd like one, yes.
Of course, everybody realizes you're dealing with a different clientele, over there, people coming in and out, but it was kind of disconcerting when we went over to the drug court thing, and I went into one of the restrooms there, the men's restroom, of course. The soap dispenser was just, like somebody vandalized it, and
It's pretty bad for a new building.
you can't, respect has to be voluntary on people's part. But it just irritates the Pope. I'm not even Catholic,
We have two people, part-time people that are going through the vetting process right now that, thanks to Rachel, she knew a couple of people, and so we had about, after we fired the cleaning service, I had about 3 part-time housekeepers at different buildings that quit, just all in the same week, and so we've really, it's always been a struggle, but when they start leaving, several at a time, it's really a problem, and so.
But, look at the professional cleaning crew coming in and doing the major work, and then having a couple of part-time individuals there on site probably would take care of it. But I wouldn't want the part, like he said, the part-time people on their hands and knees trying to clean that floor. That'll run anybody away,
Right.
So I
Right.
think if you put that
Somebody-
bid out,
Yeah, if you had somebody there during the day that just, like at the airport, they're constantly
Right.
going in every hour, checking there's enough paper towels, enough soap and dispensers, just keeping things picked up, and, hand towels, people don't care anymore, they just throw the trash down everywhere, but if we just keep it tidied up, it
Equipment too.
keeps that respect.
We did move. We had a full-time lady at the old judicial building, and she comes in, I think 10 or 11 in the morning, and that's one of her duties, is to make sure that all of the dispensers and things are cleaned up. But we don't have anybody else. She can't clean during the day while the crowd's there, and so.
But even going into the kitchens, Melissa said that she and Tammy are going in, having cleaned their own kitchens, where break rooms and et cetera, where our employees are using, because it's just got nasty.
so can we see about that professional company being?
Yes, we
Bid?
can. We can. We'll have to revisit the company that was doing the company that was doing it. Their bid was substantially lower than anybody else that bid on it, and so we may have to revisit the funding sometime in the middle of the year. But we can for sure.
Okay, that brings us down to presentation.
Mayor, did you want a motion on that?
Yeah, we need a motion on that bid.
Yeah,
Professional
I'll make a
company.
motion for professional cleaning company.
I hear a second to that effect.
Second.
Any more discussion? If not, call the roll.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner David Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Toots?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? And Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda presentation, Jeffrey Tom Trent of TIF.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
Sorry.
You go ahead.
If I may, I'm with Jeff Reed. I'm a new associate in his office. He just sent me down here to introduce Tom Trent, who should be presenting on the TIF, and Mr. Brian Davis, the developer on this new project.
Okay,
Yeah, if y'all want to come up,
Come up.
And have a seat.
Is it,
I felt it, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that it was important enough. The TIF when I was in the Senate, I passed a legislation on a TIF up in Sevier County in Pigeon Forge, and it's very complicated, but I felt it was best that we have the experts to come and let's get educated on the TIF, what it actually does. We're talking about the property where the old United Methodist Church is.
Right.
The city, I believe, city council, am I correct, have already
Yes.
passed?
The industrial development board and the
Yeah,
city.
IDB has already done that, and of course it has to travel through our body as well, so. I'll turn it over, y'all can introduce yourselves and make your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Should I sit down?
Yes, sir.
Did you say?
Stand, whatever you want to do.
Okay, hi. My name's Tom Trent. I'm an attorney at Bradley Arab Bulk Cummings Law Firm in Nashville. and I work on economic development incentive projects, among other things. And the city of Murfreesboro engaged me to help with the downtown redevelopment TIF that they like to have approved for the site that Brian will be visiting about in a minute. But first, it would be, I was asked by Jeff Reed, to give you a brief overview of how TIFs work, because you haven't done one before here. Make sense? So this is a overall presentation, then we'll get into the details on this project. So there are several different kinds of TIFs. TIF stands for tax increment financing. There's several types. Most of the ones that you read about in Nashville, where they had the TIF study committee and all of that, were under the Housing Authority. Metropolitan Housing Development Agency did those. But you can also do TIFs through the Industrial Development Board. That's what this is. So these are economic development TIFs, and all of them have to relate to a project. So what's going to happen, I suspect, it's happening in all over the country, but also in our area, is instead of doing payment in lieu of tax deals all the time, which is normally how you incentivize projects in Rutherford County, you can do a TIF, and in some measures it's simpler, and it is more tied to the success of the project, so we're going to see more of these. This is just a brief summary of the kinds of things you can do under the Industrial Development Board, but really any commercial enterprise works, which means retail, office, manufacturing, distribution, restaurants. And so when we get into it, a TIF is a project financing or a project-based incentive. It's repaid from the incremental increase in property tax as a result of the project. The concept is that the increment, the increase in property tax, is new money. So you're not giving away something that you already have, you're investing by using some of the proceeds, the property tax proceeds that come in from the project. So let me visit for just a minute about a payment in lieu of tax deal, which you've done many times. Pilots, we call those, take property off the tax roll, and then you cut a deal called a tax agreement, where they agree how much of the property tax they'll pay. Here it stays on the tax roll, and they pay the property tax they otherwise would have paid, but only the increase in property tax as a result of the project is used for the incentive. Make sense? So the short version is a pilot is a tax abatement, and a TIF is a tax rebate with the same dollars. It's just using it in a different way. So many of them are done as financings where you have a loan. And one important point here is the Industrial Development Board is always the borrower on those. The developer is the one responsible to identify the lender. And all of these deals are done without recourse. So unlike when you go sign a note to borrow money to buy a car or pay for your house, if you don't insure your car and it gets stolen, you still got to pay the note. That's a recourse note. These are non-recourse. The only obligation of the Industrial Development Board is that when it gets a portion of the property tax for the incentive, it has to put it in its bank account. And then the lender can take the money out, they have a lien on it. That's it. So the really important point is the Industrial Development Board, the city, and the county and the state are not liable on this. So it's a nice incentive from that viewpoint. The way these are done is the Industrial Development Board adopts an economic impact plan. You've got a copy in your materials. And it designates an economic impact plan area. In this case, it's the city block, downtown where the old historic church is. And from that area, the Industrial Development Board is entitled to receive a portion of the increase, the incremental increase in property taxes, which you can use as an incentive. So you then pause for a moment and say, well, how do you define the increment? And the answer is by statute. you calculate what the property tax was for the property in the plan area the year before the year in which the plan's adopted. So this plan, if it's adopted, it will be adopted in 2019. So you look at what the taxes were in 2018, and that's the base tax. On this particular project we're going to talk about, that's zero because it's been owned by the city. And so there was no property tax on it in 2018. But when you see another one of these projects down the road, if you have a site across the street, for example, that is put into redevelopment through this incentive process, you will not be giving up any money from your current budget because they have to pay whatever the tax was last year. So that's a nice part of a TIF incentive. The property tax base is preserved. So you then take the incremental increase in property tax and subtract from that the dedicated taxes. That's under the comptroller's bill, or the tax law that's called the Uniformity in Tax Increment Financing Act. I believe you were involved in that. And what that does is says, and this is now across all the different TIF statutes, but you have to also keep at the county and the city level the portion of the property tax that is, the portion of the property tax that is allocated in your budget to debt service. So not only do you keep the 2018 amount of tax, but you keep the portion of the new tax that you would normally use to pay your debt service. So that's protected. Only that portion above that, I call it the available increment, can be used for an incentive. That's determined by the chief financial officer of the city and county. I have them sign a simple certificate that says this is the portion that's our dedicated taxes. We rely on that and close the deal. And they can be used for one of two things. You can either use the increment to pay bonds that the developer or notes, which is the IDB's non-recourse note that the developer has found the lender to make the loan on, or you can use them to pay directly for costs of the project. We give them that option on just about every deal because it doesn't matter to you or me. And often it's easier to just simply say, pay your taxes and we'll give you X% of it back as reimbursement for costs of the project. Important point is this last bullet point. If you use it for public infrastructure costs, we don't have to get approval by the state for the TIF. And the reason is when you think about it, all we're doing then is using property tax dollars to pay for public infrastructure, which cities and counties do anyway. So we're in essence using the income from the property tax from a project that you've incentivized to help pay for something that benefits the public. That's what we're actually going to talk about on this one as well. So the plan area has to be located in the municipality that created the board. You have a Rutherford County board, so it has to be located in Rutherford County. It has to include an industrial park or project. The one we're going to talk about, the project, is the parking garage on the site. And the plan has to set forth the boundaries of the plan area. It has to discuss the benefits from the development of the project, and it has to limit the allocation of taxes from the increment to a maximum of 20 years. The pilot statute has a 20-year cap as well, so that's the same. You will see that if you do it under the housing authority, they can also do a similar TIF. They can go up to 30 years. But the difference there is it has to be in a blighted area. This does not. So this can be used for a greenfield site. If you've got a new interchange or land at one of your interchanges or near it, and you've got some major retailer looking to come to town, it's a perfect incentive for that kind of thing because that can kick off additional revenue in the area around it. And you can actually use a plan area that's bigger than the site of the project that you're inducing if you conclude that that project's going to help the rest of the area around it develop. So it can be a more robust incentive. They use this for the Nissan headquarters deal, for example. So the approval process on this is First, the Industrial Development Board has to approve the plan after 2 weeks' notice in the paper and the public hearing. Then it has to be approved by each municipality that's contributing some of its property tax to the incentive. The city of Murfreesboro has already approved this, as has the Industrial Development Board. And if we're going to document it, the plan is simply adopted by the Industrial Development Board, the city, and the county. We then enter into an agreement with the developer, which we call a development agreement or a funding agreement, that says, well, here's what we want from you for that. And that document says, you got to start by this date, unless there's some major surprise or problem. We'd like it to be done by that date. You need to spend a certain amount of money, so we have to get your plans approved so we know what we're going to get. And so it's a very straightforward, actually relatively simple process. You can do things like say, you know, I don't really want what a retailer would call a noxious use. So you'll see in this one, there's a provision that says that you're not going to have an adult bookstore, for example. There's a list of things, some of which are only noxious because they take a lot of parking. And part of what we want here is to have available public parking. So if you do the TIF loan, it's really quite simple, but you can also, is it going in the right direction? Yes. You can also enter the development agreement directly and simply reimburse them, which is most likely what we'll do on this one. Once they get complete, this is a nice thing about it. Let's pause for a minute. When you do a pilot, you take the property off the tax roll. You say, you know, do your manufacturing facility, your industrial facility, and maintain this number of jobs, and we'll reduce your property taxes. Here, we actually have provisions in there that say things like, we want you to do it in this time frame. We'd like you to do some reporting requirements, and so we've gone through all of that. Adam Tucker from the city, Senator Bolden from the IDB, Jeff Reed representing the developer, and I, who worked together and came up with the plan that I think you'll find is helpful. This one, they can do it either way, as a reimbursement or as a loan. So quickly, on a pilot, one really hard thing is you have to convey the property to the Industrial Development Board and then lease it back. So if you've got a major company coming to town, and I'll give you an example, in Mount Pleasant a few years ago, there was an Italian porcelain tile manufacturer coming. It was impossible, really, to explain to somebody why they should spend, tens of millions of dollars for a facility and then give it to the Industrial Development Board. It's difficult to translate that even in English, isn't it? You don't have to do that here. So we did a TIF, and we simply said, build it. When you're all done, show us that it's done. We'll then start reimbursing you some of the property tax as you pay your tax. Did the same thing on the Schneider Electric deal in Franklin, and we're able to aim that incentive right at Schneider, even though it was a multi-tenant building. We didn't have to take the whole building off the tax roll. Everybody just paid the tax they normally would, and we rebated 40% of that, since they're a 40% tenant, to them to pay for their tenant improvement work. So it can be aimed, it can be broadened. It's a little more flexible than a pilot. And so everybody just pays the tax they normally would pay, and then you divide it up and allocate it between the dedicated taxes and the company. The pilot affects only the property that you're dealing with, whereas an IDB TIF can actually cover a larger area. If you've got an important project you're trying to incentivize and you want to give them a larger incentive and you think it will kick off a much larger development. The Nissan plan area, for example, includes 2 quadrants of the McEwen interchange that was put in, even though they're only on a portion of one. And their terms are the same. A pilot, though, on retail can only go 10 years without approval by everybody. And you can go longer with approval of the state, but I have not done that on a TIF. I've done that on really big pilots. bottom line, required approval is when you do public infrastructure, you don't need approval by the state. If you do it for something other than that, you do. If you're going to go longer than 20 years, you need approval by the state. Other than that, it's approved by you, the IDB, and the city. So I covered a lot quickly, but I thought I ought to do that since you've already had a long meeting. And with your permission, I'll tell you a little bit more about the project on the table, and then Brian can talk about the details of that project if you want to load your presentation. You know how to do that? We hit escape. We close this.
The last icon.
Oh, yeah, that's you. No, that's somebody else. Something else to look forward to. There you go. And then, all right, so just quickly, I want to give you a little summary ahead of time and how this fits into our plan. This particular economic impact plan for the East College Street development area, which you have in your materials, is a project that he'll explain in more detail. But what we're really doing here at the end of the day is suggesting and requesting that you approve a plan that permits the city, the county, and the IDB to work with them to give them up to $6 million worth of the incremental increase of property tax over a period not exceeding 15 years. So this ends the sooner of $6 million to them or 15 years. We currently anticipate that it will be about $530,000 a year based on the property tax assessor's estimate of 2019 dollars in real property taxes. So on that basis, after you take out the dedicated taxes, this probably won't go 15 years. And if you increase property taxes, happens faster. If it gets appraised over time at a higher number, happens faster. Most of the ones I've done, we're finding that we do a conservative estimate up front like this, and they don't, and it gets paid off sooner than the time period than we're anticipating.
If it goes the other way, might the full $6 million not get paid in 15 years?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, and that's why a lot of people like a TIF incentive, is because it's completely performance-based. If they don't accomplish what they've suggested and it doesn't appraise at the value, or it doesn't have the value that was anticipated, you're not out another dime, and it's up to them to cover the difference. And that's why it's non-recourse.
And you said the dedicated taxes was?
The percentage of your budget
That goes to debt service.
that goes to debt service each year. Last year, that was about, if I remember correctly, something like 18%. I don't know what it is this year. I know you just changed your budget a month or two ago. But we'll calculate that with the CFO before this closes. Okay? I think it's important to mention that the plan sets forth anticipated benefits. Some of the financial benefits are there will be a hotel. We're anticipating the hotel motel tax to be about $321,000 a year, just in the lodging taxes, another $626,000 a year in sales taxes, and then the retail component and the restaurant component, estimating about $1 million a year in sales taxes. That's city and county total, so I don't remember what percentage each
We
of
don't
you.
get sales tax, do we? Do we get city sales tax?
Or education.
Yeah, there's an education
Still
component.
goes- it still goes to education?
Yeah, there is. That's my understanding anyway.
It's a maintenance of effort.
Yep. Does anybody have the percentage? I don't, Sumner. But yeah, that's sizable. And then, of course, when this incentive's over, the whole property tax, back on the, is yours, and forever. The other important benefit is that there's about 520 full-time equivalent jobs from this, which is a very sizable
How many?
job.
520.
Yeah.
Full-time jobs?
FTEs, full-time equivalents. So that includes, if you have 2 part-time people, that's 1, if they each work, 20-hour week.
So this is a hotel, a restaurant,
Retail.
Retail, commercial,
and other retails.
yeah, and some office, correct?
Yeah,
He's going to go through all this
Oh,
now.
right over that.
So I don't want to belabor the point, but of the ones I've worked on, it's a darn good deal. And most importantly, it ends up taking that city block and puts a beautiful project on there and saves the bell tower, which is iconic. And frankly, they're talking about saving a lot more than that. So would you like Brian to go on and do his presentation, and we can answer questions?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm Brian Davis. I'm with One East College LLC Development, the developer on this project. I'm also the president of TRC Construction Services. We're a partner in the development, and we'll be the design builder for the entire project. I'll start by saying we're excited about this project. Be excited to get it started. Per the documents you have in front of us, we have to start demolition by January 24th of next year, and we have to be complete by June 30th of 2023.
Complete with what?
With the project. Where we are at as I go through this, we are in the process right now of our planned urban development. Submittal is in the city's planning staff's hand being reviewed, and that's moving along. And then behind that are our individual structures will go behind that. But we've started that process. It'll be moving its way through the rest of the year. One East College is a mixed-use development. It's got 5 key features. The main feature, of course, is the historic First Methodist Church that was built in 1888. Our development agreement with the city requires us to save the bell tower, which we are doing, and we'll be enhancing it. We're also going to save the church. We have no intent of demolishing the church. We have plans for that I think will serve the community well and be a positive.
So as a Methodist, I have to point out, it's the sanctuary you're saving.
Yes.
The education building.
Yeah, yes. That will be the only structure that's currently on site that will be saved. The 2-story educational building will be demolished. The 1-story building on the corner of Spring and East College that the fire department and the library had administrative offices in will be demolished as well.
That was the old Clark Maples building.
Right. So the only facility building that will stay is the church and the bell tower. See if I can make this thing go here. We've put this into an aerial that kind of shows you some massing. Those elevations are a little bit older. We're currently doing some revisions to those. That just gives you some massing of scale. There again, another view just kind of gives you a little massing of scale, looking from different directions of how that project will fit. The overall project is bordered by East Lytle, East College Street, North Church Street on the west, and North Spring Street on the east.
And from my standpoint, that for this deal is the plan area under the economic impact plan. So only the incremental increase in property tax from their project is being used. You can use more for projects from time to time, but that's not the request, and that's not been approved by the IDP in the city. It's limited to things they're creating the value from.
The 5 components of the city block, of course, is the church building at the bottom left-hand corner, and we are making that a focal point, if you will, and the namesake of the project. North of that, the office building will be a 4-story office building. The first floor will have is about 15,000 square foot footprint, and that will be retail, coffee shop, restaurant. So that would be walk-up entry. There will be coffee shop, some type of a deli, that kind of thing in that building, and then 3 floors of office space above that. To the right of that is the larger footprint. In the beige is the 4-level parking structure. It is approximately 505 spaces, 3.5, almost 4 levels. And then what you see cross-hashed in red
is the residential dwellings above. So the parking garage would be 3.5 and to 4 stories. You would have a podium, if you will, a structural concrete podium, and then 3 stories of wood frame residential dwellings. The 5th piece, the bottom right-hand corner, is the hotel building. The hotel will be 110 units. We're working with 2 national chain flags right now. Between the 2 of those, we will tie 1 down. Each of those will require some type of a restaurant, and one will require a rooftop bar, restaurant type facility on the roof of that building. The hotel will be an upper scale, and there will be some shared uses most likely between it and what may go in the church building. The church building we are looking to turn into an event space, an upscale event space. And we also have some interest in possible restaurant with some type of a music venue. So we've got several prospects there, but it will complement what's happening with the hotel as well as the residential piece. Those are the 5 key pieces. Along with this development, we will wind up completely redoing the perimeter, the sidewalks that are part of the public space around the perimeter, and then we'll have open space between the office building and the garage, which would have pavers, some landscaping, benches, those kind of things to make that a walkable, space that you're not just trying to get between 2 buildings to get somewhere. It'd be a livable space.
How many residential units did you anticipate?
55.
And I will mention that under the TIF presentation, I talked about public infrastructure and that you don't have to get state approval for that. Parking facilities count as public infrastructure, so we don't have to get state approval. If and when the county commission approves this, then we're done and able to get started.
All of the perimeter sidewalks are on city property that we would be redoing, so it would go towards public infrastructure around the perimeters.
So is like the $6 million rebate, so to speak, is that what going to the garage?
It's
The garage
applied-
and then the sidewalks.
It's applied to the garage and then
Okay.
public infrastructure that we do.
So the garage, I'm sorry. So the garage, I guess the residents would use the garage?
Yes, the garage is going to have multiple uses and layering, a lot of shared space. The residential parking would be at the very top of the garage. And when you get to that point, there would be a gate with either a keypad or a fob that gets you in. So you'd have to be a resident, or the resident would have to let you in to get past that slider gate. Everything below that is, in essence, public. The office building, you would have uses. The hotel use is mainly in the evenings from 5 o'clock till maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. A lot of times by 7, those are cleared out. Your coffee shops, your deli's going to have a little bit in the morning, midday, not so much later in the day. But what happens in the church is church building will generally probably be nights and weekends more so than during the day. So you have a lot of things going on, but there's a lot of shared space. But just on the pure count, what you have to have in doing an allowable 20% shared parking, the first level alone, which is about equivalent to the spaces that are on the ground out there now, would be not only open to the public, but would be available most all times without overflow from another area. You'll have more than that available. It will be controlled. So we don't have some of the problems y'all just talked about in the other garage. It will be gated, and you will be charged to park after a certain period to keep people from staying in there all day and going 5 blocks away to their office or whatever. You want to try to keep...
Parking the Winnebago when they're
Yeah.
yeah. We've had that problem.
We design and build a lot of parking garages, and you see a lot of things. So you want that gated so you can control it, and so people will move, and somebody doesn't park their vehicle there and leave it for a month.
Well, so like if I'm going to go to the coffee shop, or an office?
Yeah, you go in there, you'll have that. There'll be a certain period that you can.
So it's free parking for a couple of hours or something?
Well, I'm not sure about 2 hours, but we're looking at a period in there where it is. And the key is to get people in and out. And the real key is not to have somebody come in there and park and leave their vehicle for 2 or 3 days and take up space. The key thing with this development is the usage, the time that parking is required for each of these uses is varying during the day and the evening. So every square footage of this space is not going to need their parking space all at the same time. So you will have more available than just what we're accounting for, the lower level that would apply to the TIF and the infrastructure. So a lot of it, if you put a lot of things that were operating the same, so to speak, just offices, then everybody needs it all, and then it's empty. So there's a lot of overlapping shared spaces, so that the parking garage is being used in the evening for the hotel, office space not so much. And we anticipate the event space in the church building to be probably more of an evening and weekend function.
So like the hotel guest, would they pay to park, or
right?
Is that part of their hotel?
That would be part of their hotel. Part of their hotel bill. They'd pull in, they can park, they'd come out and be part of what they're doing with the hotel. And the thing about hotels, you provide a space per room, but very seldom does everybody that takes a room have a space anymore. With Uber, Lyft, and ride sharing, you're seeing less people actually driving and utilizing that. This project is exactly 1 mile to MTSU, so we anticipate the hotel. We're going to be working with MTSU to try to create some activity and some teaming with their business travelers, as well as maybe some recreational stuff on the weekends. That's the overall layout. Now, we've got some renderings. These are continually being tweaked a little bit. As I said, we're going through the process with the City of Franklin Planning Commission, so as that process goes through, we'll be making...
City of
Murfreesboro.
Watch that one now.
But,
that's a coachable moment.
Yeah, it is. It is. This is a view from looking at the church at the corner of East College and North Church.
Can you show a parking garage view from the east?
We'll get to it as we go around. The office building there is shown as 5 stories. We will be reducing that to 4. The 5th level increases the parking requirements and has a few other things that come with it
That's awesome.
that we're not wanting to do. We've trying to blend in this site. Has a lot of different architectural styles within sight of anywhere on this site. So we're trying to blend with what we can and bring a little bit more of the historic look in, but we also have to deal with some of the other things. So you'll notice on the office building, we're trying to blend in some of the arch windows with the narrow arch windows that are in the bell tower, to blend that in a little bit. Some of these colors with the rendering program we have aren't exact, so they'll be tweaked a little bit. The church, we will be enhancing the exterior of it. We'll be enhancing the bell tower's visibility. Right now, there's about 3 platform levels inside that bell tower, so there's very little light. We plan to remove those, make those the top of the tower visible from floor level, and backlight those windows so that, not bright, but so that you can see light through those windows from a distance. The building on the right is the hotel project, which would have some retail on the first level. As we said, there's possibly going to be a rooftop bar, depending on which one of the 2 flags we settle with. That elevation will most likely be enhanced based on what that hotel chain requires and try to blend it in with the area. These are some street views. This is looking at the office building if you were standing on Church, in front of the church, looking back towards Lytle. Just a few views. That is basically at Spring Street and Lytle, looking back. The hotel's to the left side, and that is the long view on the residential over the parking garage. So we're trying to feed in some color and some different things so that you don't get that long, narrow look of the parking garage. And we're still working on those a little bit to fine tune them. The parking garage is 4 levels. The top 3 is the residential. This level, you would be looking at the corner of North Spring Street, looking west down East College. The Presbyterian Church would be to your right. That's the prominent corner of the hotel. You can see the church bell tower behind you. Again, we're back at East College and Church, looking back towards the hotel with a street view. And I think that's the elevations we got for you now.
Looks nice.
Again, they're continually being updated a little bit. Every piece of this will go through individually. All 5 pieces will go through City of Murfreesboro Planning's review, and we'll meet the ordinances that apply to each one, as well as it's currently going through the planned urban development process, which kind of sets the standard for that block and what we have to do.
So did you say, on looking at that the property assessor's got some idea of what the property taxes would be?
Yes. The plans were submitted to the property tax assessor, and they met together, and he came up with an estimate of the assessed value. It's in the plan, but let me do that for you. He estimated an assessed value of about $46 million, and that would generate annual property tax revenues of about $534,000.
Now, is that 534, is that county and city?
Yes. And then you would deduct the dedicated taxes from that, and the amount over that would be the available increment.
And so that available increment would be to rebate
Yes.
until we reach $6 million.
Yes.
Or 15 years.
Or 15 years, whichever is first.
And then after that, everything
It
is
just goes
like
away.
it would be.
Yep.
Is the total fund you're seeking 6 million, or is it 6 from each entity?
No, 6 total.
6 total out of that 500 in taxes. What portion of that 500,000 a year in taxes is the county's? Do you know, Rob?
Not off the top of my head, Tom.
I don't have that.
2/3, I guess.
Probably. That'd be typical across the state. But I believe you get all the hotel motel tax, right? Lodging
We
tax.
split, each get 2.5 points.
2.5, okay.
Our big hit's property tax,
Yeah.
not sales tax. Or just our contributions, to property tax, I think is our big
Makes
part of
sense.
this conversation.
Yeah.
Well, the sales tax, doesn't half the sales tax go to education, and then we split that?
I just don't remember what our sales tax percentage is. I just saw it's
Something
very
like that.
small.
So that would be huge for education.
But it's not touched, right?
No, it's not.
Only the
It's not
property
touched,
tax.
only the property tax.
Property tax.
So currently it's 0 on all of that, and so this is all new money. That's why these TIF incentives are kind of nice. That's only new money.
Okay, any more questions? Comments?
So this would need to go to budget. I'll move that we forward the budget, Mr. Chairman.
second.
Forward to the budget with a positive recommendation.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
For a second.
Yes, sir.
Any more discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Yes. Commissioner David Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Thank y'all.
Thanks for being thorough, and thanks for the efforts Brian has made in creating a space for this town.
We're excited about the possibilities.
I grew up in that church. I've been a part of that church for 50 and something like years.
We're excited that this
Thank you for saving that.
Went to preschool.
You did a good job. I played some ball in that gym.
All the members centered at that building right there. Okay, next on the agenda, transfer of remnant parcels to town of Smyrna. I think that's from Rock Springs Elementary and Rock Springs Middle School. It says two, but I think that should be from.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, that's actually incorrect. It's Rocky Fork.
Rocky Fork.
Not Rock Springs. It's Rocky Fork, the new development that we just opened.
Was this down on Emerald Road?
It's on Rocky Fork Road.
Rocky Fork Road?
Yes, sir.
Rock Springs is another road.
Yeah.
The Rock Springs Elementary's on Waldron Road and Rock Springs Middle's on...
Stop.
We're going to get it all confused, so... Rocky Fork's on Rocky Fork.
I'm sorry, I was kidding, please.
That's okay. Basically, what we're cleaning up something that was actually done in 2018, and the deeds, and this did not come before this body. The plat has already been recorded, but the property deeds were never transferred. I assume, and I may incorrectly, that you all have. Did Mr. Reed provide this drawing for you all? It's an orange and pink drawing. Yes, sir, that's it. The pink portion of this drawing is actually the roadways, which is normal transfer for city roads. It's typical. What land is being transferred is the blue section. Basically, none of this property is sizable or usable for the school board. The property to the north, which is the widest and largest part, blue, that's actually a TVA right-of-way, which is part of the property that we purchased and would cost the county quite a bit of money to maintain yearly. To the west is a little small piece on the west side of Spring Hill Road. That's actually, there again, property that would just have to be mowed and maintained. There's two small triangular pieces that on each side of Big Sun Lane on Rocky Fork Road. Those pieces are not, being in the city limits, they're not really large enough to build a structure on. What the city's intent with that is, and their willingness to take this property so that we don't have to maintain it. There's a developer that's building the subdivision that you see there also on the plan that is to the south, that is going to donate to the city about another 1.5 acres to go with this small piece that's adjacent to our road so that the city can build a fire hall.
That's good.
So it's not actually large enough for us to do anything, but it actually would benefit the city.
Where is that on the fire hall?
The fire hall would be on this piece. They're getting a donation from this developer
For that.
to go with this piece, because that piece is not large enough.
Right.
They're going to add about another 1.5 acres with it, and then they would have enough space there to build a fire hall. This piece is the TVA right away.
Okay.
This is just a small sliver that they're going to maintain, because we're deeding them the road anyway.
Yeah.
This is a city road.
So they can mow it.
They'll take care of mowing it. Otherwise, we would have to.
And Smyrna supports this, advocates for it.
Yes, sir. Actually, there was agreement between the former city manager, Mr. Clardy, and former Mayor Burgess that it didn't really benefit us. It was part of what we bought, and after we figured out how to lay the roads out, that they would take the TVA part and mow it if we give them the front part, which actually benefits them. The other part doesn't really benefit, because with the TVA right-of-way, nobody can build anything or do anything with it other than mow it and maintain it.
We would transfer for $1 or 10, whatever,
They're doing a quick claim deed and deed it to them, and they take it.
I'll make a motion to approve this request to transfer property to Smyrna.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Cook.
Only thing I like to bring up is that we looked at the property at Florence Road, and I went down and looked at it personally, myself. And once we went down, looked at it personally, and came back, we saw other things that wasn't discussed or maybe fell through the crack in being discussed. This not a project that we have to pass on tonight. I'm thinking that basically myself, I would feel comfortable if I went down, put my eyes on it myself, instead of just looking at the drawing. And the reason I say that, that's what we did at Florence Road. We found out some different things. So I would like to hold this project up, at least for another month, another meeting, so it will allow each commissioner on this committee, if they want to go down and personally look at it, because I myself would like to go down and personally look at it. Because we got a developer involved, and what I'm seeing here may be correct, may be legit, but I would like to look at it myself. So I don't think another month would kill this project, holding it up per se, and letting the commissioners or whoever want to go down and physically look at it.
I'm not sure that any grass has been growing, so it's
I know.
tries this, man.
How much square foot is this land? You know the square footage of
The square footage of the acreage.
oh, we got acreage.
Yeah,
The acreage is about 3.5 to 4
They
acres.
didn't say that.
Well,
If you add it all together, it's about 3.5.
see, that's
to
the reason
4
I like
acres.
to physically look at these
But
projects myself.
of the 3.5 to 4 acres, probably 3 acres is the TVA right away.
Yeah, I developed some land too, and I built a house on I sold lots, 10,000 square foot lots for $45,000 a lot, per lot. That was in Laverne. But not even a very populated area at that time.
My willingness to advocate for it so quickly was that perhaps I'm more familiar with these type plats, but this land is not developable or sellable as property that can be built on. It's similar to what we did at Northside Baptist Church at Old Nashville Highway and Thompson Lane. I had the same question you had, like, hang on here, it's worth $25,000 an acre, we're giving it to the city of Murfreesboro. But after I got the comfort level that Mr. Mackey doesn't have yet. Once I got the comfort level, it was the right thing to do, was to give it to the city.
Well, I want to make sure the commissioner.
By all means, y'all need to understand this
Yeah.
to vote in favor. My motion stands, but by all means, I wasn't trying to ram it through, but I happen to be familiar with that.
Yeah.
And either way, whether you vote for it tonight or don't vote for it tonight, if anybody wants to go, if you'll call me, I'll be glad to meet you.
Well, we still got the motion and second on the floor, so.
You may get a call.
That's fine.
Where's Florence Road in relation to this?
A pretty good ways.
Pretty good ways.
Yes, sir.
Florence Road, oh God.
Florence
I
Road is
thought you mentioned
probably...
Florence was part of it.
I mentioned Florence Road as being a project where came up, some individual came up and was asking for land.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
You remember that?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And we wanted it to be given to them until I went down there and looked, and after further investigation, that land could be used by us as a pond.
That's correct.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do indeed.
So I don't know, looking at these three parcels, it looks good here, but that's the reason I would like to go down physically and look at it myself.
Let me ask you this, though. If we approve it tonight, it goes to the full commission, or
Yes.
would you have time, Mr. Chair, to view it before the full commission?
Oh, yes, I would.
Okay, so is that okay if we go ahead and send it, and then the other commissioners who would like to go look at it would have time?
That would be fine, because I'll probably be the one bringing it up on the full commission floor.
Okay.
And if I noticed something when I went down there, like, hey, we can hold this piece of partial here for a soccer field or something, practice baseball field or football training facility. I don't know, but I know if I go down and look at it, I can pretty well tell if a future need for this land would be for the county before we give it away.
And I just want to make sure Mr. Gammon had a chance. Would you be able to look at it if we continue? Would you be able to look at it before the next commission meeting, the third week of October?
That's correct, 17th.
Because if we, I want the board to be unified. I certainly want to satisfy the chairman. If y'all are comfortable, you can look at it. I'll leave the motion in place.
Yeah.
If you're,
I'm comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable, look, as long as I get to look at it before the full commission.
are you okay leaving the motion
okay,
in? Call the question, please.
Want to read the motion? Back.
Approve the transfer of the properties to Smyrna as requested.
Okay. Should we add, well, I don't think we need not to add that. The only thing I'm concerned about, if I go look, this commissioner go look and say, and see something that just stick out, that the county could use it for, will I be able to change it the night of the commission?
We need to add a contingency to that motion then.
Well, no, I think that at that point, you would bring something up and present your argument, and the full commission can vote it down.
Either I can send it back to the committee.
Or you can send it back to the commission.
Yeah, send it back to the committee. Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
We'll clarify what we're voting on.
I'll vote on it, but.
We're gonna vote
As long
on
as we can.
Yeah, but we can always, based on our observation, send it back to the committee or turn it down or whatever.
Do we want to set a date? Trey, meet us.
By the next commissioner meeting.
We'd have to do a public notice if we're all going to meet and go, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
that's right.
So I think we just.
I'm willing to meet individually. If that's, I mean, I want y'all satisfied.
Our office, Mr. Chairman, instead of taking a bus down there, there's no sense in doing that. But we could send out notice from our office to all the commissioners and tell them, if you get the opportunity, here's a copy of the map. If you want to go look at it before you have to cast your vote on it at the full commission meeting of October, please go down and look at it before you have to vote on it.
The way we handled the Florence Road project, I think I met the individual that was interested in that piece of property down there on the actual site. And we walked it, looked at it, discussed things.
It was very prudent. You made the right decision on that one. To keep it.
I know it. Okay, so call the roll on that.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trey.
Yeah, I do.
Where are you going?
We still got something. You can't leave yet. Okay, next on the agenda, presentation, Ivan Lamont with Elam with Spectralist. Specialist. Don't say specialist here. I think it's spectrum.
Yeah, it's spelled a little different.
Yeah, it's spelled a little different.
Like insurance company name or something.
Right.
But just to make this easy, you all know you can look at that property through your pictometry accounts that we gave you. So you can see it, 2-inch resolution, 365, you don't have to drive, so that might help some too.
That would help, but I'll still like to.
You ever see it in the flesh?
With a school member down there or somebody to say, hey, you don't ever want to ever use this property, right?
Ian Lamont represents Spatialist, which is an appraisal tool that the larger counties in Tennessee currently use. We've been striving to be able to have this tool in our office and for the county. There's many different components with it for about 5 years now. Mayor Ketron sat through a presentation about this time last year, and they have solutions for county transparency that they work with large jurisdictions, much larger than pretty much any jurisdiction we currently have in Tennessee, City of Seattle, City of Los Angeles, with providing solutions to their governments to assist them in making the proper decisions as far as property usage and land usage. I'll let the mayor say anything from...
Thank you, Rob. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I had been in office more than 3 or 4 weeks, I think, when our property assessor asked me to come down and look at this presentation. It was very impressive. Mr. Lamont resides in Ireland, and this is his company. I think you informed me that Davidson County uses this.
Davidson, Sumner, Montgomery, Shelby.
So it was something that the previous county mayor looked at, but never brought it before the commission, and I felt that at least it warrants the opportunity for the commission to look at it and make a decision, and working with the property assessor of what all of these tools could actually bring. And so he's here and came here from Ireland prepared to make this presentation.
So good evening, everyone. I've got a bit of a funny accent, and I've got an irritating cough, or the other way around, I'm not quite sure. But thank you very much. I realize it's been a long evening, so I just wanted to take you briefly through the sort of technology that we employ all over the United States. Yes, I do have a funny accent, but I'm predominantly based here, and I came here from California last week, Colorado the week before, somewhere else the week before that. We provide assessment tool sets to help people like Rob and his office. So basically what we do is we train people up in technology so that he doesn't have to send people out to the field to do appraisals. So we do mass appraisal analysis. We do it using a technique that we have patented, which makes it much more precise and exact. And I'm very proud of that, actually, because I wrote the algorithm behind the patent, and 20-some years ago as part of a PhD project that I was working on. So it's very personal to me, but I can see whenever I meet with somebody like Rob, and I think Russell's in the back here as well, I heard that they've only had a couple of staff who's been through a reappraisal before, so they don't have an awful lot of experience, whereas our technologies allow them to train people up very quickly to be able to do this work, especially in a growing market such as Rutherford County. So when properties are changing, the dynamics are happening there, you can't send out tens and dozens of people to appraise this stuff. It has to be done using technology, and that's what we provide. So I'm going to take you through really quickly some of the stuff we do. There's lots of assessment problems. Rob could sit here all night and tell you the challenges that his office faces, but basically it's the lack of staff and resources that we try and help with. Technology can help that. So we can help with the full spectrum, the full gamut of what Rob's office is challenged with. For example, dirty data basically means bad results. So we can help clean it. We can help them run predictive modeling. So for example, in a county such as Rutherford County, we can help his team build and set up predictive models that run in a minute to generate values for every single property in the county. Now it takes a bit of time to get up to that particular point, but to be able to run that analysis and calibrate it or whatever, that's the sort of the time frame that we're looking at. So we can train up his team so that essentially on a monthly basis he can run analysis that figures out where the beating heartbeat of the county is happening, where are property prices increasing, where are they decreasing, what can we do about it, how can we start to understand all of these dynamics. So in doing that, once we've figured out the predictive analysis piece, we can start to then share it with other stakeholders. We can figure out, for example, we heard about a TIF. Can we actually start to measure the effectiveness of that TIF? Can we measure the residual uplift in the immediate areas surround that to see whether or not was that a good investment of county resources? If it was, can we replicate it, and where can we replicate it to best make use of existing resources? So once we've built the sort of the analytical platform, we can start to do some really cool stuff with interacting with that. So we can do that in a couple of ways. Like these are some screenshots of the initial predictive modeling piece. Those little red dots represent properties, and they represent increasing property values. So it's very visual, it's very dynamic. But what we really want to do then is take that and take it out of the assessor's office and start to share it with not only the citizens of Rutherford County, but also the key stakeholders. Who else is involved in this? So what I'll do is I'll jump out real quick and I'll show you some examples of what else we've done. So this is one of your neighbours just to the north, Montgomery County. Again, a dynamic county such as yours. Huge investments coming in. They had the Hankook Tire people, they had Google coming in. And quite frankly, the assessor told me that she used this tool to convince some of those big players to move into the area because she had this. So the starting point is all of Rob's data. So on the left-hand side, I can see an area overview. So the number of parcels that are actually shown. I can see the year-on-year sales growth as it happens. But as I zoom in, all of these stats change. So I've done the heavy work. I've done the predictive modeling. I know what all the properties are worth, and then I constantly update that on a monthly basis to feed into this to see where the hot spots are, what's driving that value, what's happening in that area. For example, I can see sales transactions, and these are color coded by value. I can see by individual transactions. I can click on one of these. I can have a look at the property record card. I can see what was sold, but I can start to see what's happening from a sort of cyclical point of view. I can have a look at permits because that's telling me what's happening next. For example, that TIF we talked about earlier, that's essentially a permit. It's a process that's coming in as a taxation element in the future. So if I can start to see clusters of activity, I can understand what's driving that activity, and I can start to share that with key stakeholders. I can have a look at the assessment information, again, for that particular window I'm looking at. I can see there's residential. In this map window, there's 7.6 billion. Commercial, there's 2.6 billion. But if I wanted to go, for example, to a council district or a county district or whatever, so say I'm just going to pick number 7, that's my lucky number, and I can cookie cut out here, it'll only show me that information pertaining to that area. So if you had an elected official, as you guys will know, or you wanted to share that with them, it's just a matter of grabbing that URL at the top and giving that to someone, and every time they click on it, it refreshes. So this is all about taking information that Rob has in his office and then starting to share that with citizens. So people can access, this is a live site for Montgomery. People can access it, they can go in and they can look at whatever, but we can also expand that to do other really cool things. And let me show you this really quickly. So this is one of our bigger counties, King County in Washington. Our biggest county is actually England and Wales, 26 million parcels. So we have a lot of experience of working with huge data sets and doing a lot of really cool stuff. But what they wanted to do up there was exactly the same, show me what's happening in the area. They've taken it a little stage further in this case, where if I zoom into Seattle, everything updates. So I can see the same thing, so I can see a breakdown of residential. What's the summary total of residential values in this area? How can we measure the increase of that? So if I looked at it last month and looked at it at the next meeting, then I would have an uplift. I could see the residual between those two. But I can also start to add some information that helps the actual individual taxpayer. So what the assessor did was, he chatted to me and he said, what I would really love to do is create a different level of transparency. So all of my data is out there, everybody can access it. But if somebody's voting for a levy or some sort of impact that's going to change their property tax, I think they should know exactly how much that's going to affect their property value. So we created this tax transparency piece. So I can click on an address or whatever, or let me just zoom in somewhere. I'm just going to click on a parcel at random. What it's telling me now is that the current tax is $6,000 on that property. So don't move to Seattle. But what it'll also do is it'll work out, are there any proposed levies in the area that property is located in? And if it is, if there are anything, it'll work out how much that rate is. It'll work out if there's anything coming off the books. So it basically does a live check to see how much you would pay in difference. So the difference in this is overall $40 and the $35, but we can also see a breakdown of exactly how much of that tax goes to each particular entity. And this is stuff that Rob's office has. It's just not shared in a particular way. So this is what we decided we would call tax transparency. So if you're voting on something and it's going to impact you financially, you'll know exactly how much it's.
And this is open online, so any citizen can use it, or a county commissioner go in and he's looking to vote on something in his district, he can click on there.
Exactly.
And somebody calls him and says, well, how much is that 3-cent tax rate going to make my property taxes go up? Click on. Instantly.
Exactly.
You look smart.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I need help in that.
So, we talked about the TIF earlier. If we had an area that we were interested in, we could go in and quickly, I'm just going to do this really quickly, but we could really quickly select out an area. We could see what's in there, what the residential value is currently worth. We could then scenarioize and say, okay, what do we need from this area, from this TIF, to actually start it to become, for example, something that's uplifting the actual general area rather than just that TIF? So we can start to look at, okay, currently we're at 113. What might it be if this happens and this happens, and in 15 years' time, have we left a legacy, or has it been a challenge to the county? So again, it's a different way of looking at the same data that Rob has. It's about unifying it all, pulling it all together, and having a holistic view of what it is that you're actually looking at. There's no big easy button on this, but it gives people a much more informed decision-making process, because it's very, very visual. Because we could look at tables and charts and 3D things or whatever, but I think it takes a map to really convey information simply and easily. So that's a 5-minute pitch that poor mayor had to sit for 90 minutes through the last time, because I took him through absolutely everything. But
we're flying for Ireland all this way to this 5 minutes.
But essentially that's what we do, provide analytical tool sets to help Rob and his team. And then we take the results of that and we share them with the public to try and make a much more informed decision-making process, to make them understand what else they how they can challenge, for example, if they want to appeal their property value, they can have a look at what's sold in the area. Is it the same as their property? Well, maybe Rob's a bit high, maybe he's a bit low. If he's a bit low, I'm not going to say anything, but he's a bit high, I'm going to challenge it. So we provide those sorts of technology solutions to help not only the office, but certainly the citizens of Rutherford County.
What's it going to cost you and what's it going to save you?
It depends on how much of it we buy. If we purchase everything, the budget request I had last year, the initial purchase was somewhere in the range of $80,000. The renewal was going to be in the range of high 60s.
Annually?
Mm-hmm.
Any licenses or maintenance on top of that?
That's all included, sir.
It's all included with it. And that also includes coming in and training.
Okay, so what will it save you? Will it generate more revenue because it'll help you catch stuff you're missing?
It will help our assessors get better values because we have had, as every office has, tremendous amount of turnover. We have probably residential appraisers that have been through, and that's where a lot of the pain is, because that's where primarily the citizens are going to call complaining about stuff. Getting the correct values for those, we have, since our last reappraisal, we've got, what, Russell, 4 people maybe?
Yeah, I mean, our
that have been through
serious level has dropped tremendously over the past few years.
Brain drain, is that what you said?
That's it.
We train them, spend the money to train them, and then they go to work for the state, which is just the other side of town, and they pay them a lot more money than we can. And I understand that, but the pressure that it puts on us as an office is we have to train those people while we're still trying to meet statutory guidelines and goals.
Would Ian train every year for those, with that fee? Would he come back every year? May I ask you that?
I love coming back here.
Would you, I mean, would the renewal make for continuous training if you have such high turnover?
It's always something we can look at. What we do in terms of the training is we customize the training to use Rob's data. So we create a manual. It's maybe anything from 80 to 100 pages. It's digital as well. So that's available to everyone. So if he's got 1 users or 1,000, everyone can have access to that training manual. If there's anything new released, we update the manual free of charge as part of the ongoing maintenance and support fee.
When you say training, is it an actual person come down and train, or are they training online?
No, the actual person comes in, and I actually like doing it because it means I get to engage and stuff, but we've got a team of ex-appraisers that we've stolen from people like Rob. So it's an ongoing thing.
All right, this is a problem now.
But so they would come in and they would do the training. It's a week-long training exercise for the analytical piece. Much of these other things, there's no training at all because they're very, very intuitive. For example, this is a property record card, so this is an online property search. I just search for something like using Google. Sorry, you're probably, the screen's just above you, you're probably having the worst view, but it's very much a property record card, all about the information about the property, but it also gives a little indication about what else is happening in the area. So this is how the median house prices are moving, what's selling, what's the biggest sale or whatever. And then we've got links to other things, for example, to the deeds, so that people have a one-stop shop coming in. We can have a look at the sketch of the property, the land use zoning, anything else they want to do, for example, download area sales. But
like school districts.
School districts, if I click on this button, it goes over to that area overview where we saw the tax transparency. And then on this button, we link it to what we call Comper, and that finds the same property, and then it shows other sales that have happened in the area, so that if people that are inclined to protest their value or appeal, they can have a look at least to say, okay, this is what Rob is using to assess these properties. I'll look at that, I might want to challenge it or whatever. If they want to, then they can use this tool set to go in and say select some comparables. So I've selected 3 that are pretty close. I can have a look at these, I can click on them for more information, do all my due diligence, and then I can save that as a little PDF and send it in to Rob as part of my appeal process with a little map and then the comps. So again, it's a full circle. It's about helping the office, but it's also about, if the office is wrong, helping the citizens come back and say, I disagree with this. So it's all about whatever data he has, he's sharing with the public. So it's a even playing field.
So how do you think this would, when we send out our taxes, how do you think, and people, it takes you a long time, you and your committee, those folks who come in and sit on that committee, when people complain, say, that's not, I don't think that's fair what you've assessed me for. How much time does that take?
It would save a tremendous amount of time because we do in-house this exact same thing for every appeal. And Russell can tell you how long that takes doing it by hand through spreadsheets and pulling the tables
Most
together.
of that savings would be in the informal periods during the revaluation. By that time, we usually resolved it with people residentially in the residential sector. I mean, it's an analytical tool that we need. I'll tell you this, that our staff is aging out, and we're not able to hire people in to do the work at the level of complication that the public expects right now. And without the use of these tools, we're going to be behind significantly, and that will affect the tax base. We're currently at around $32 billion.
So about how many houses, new houses, are we building per year?
So we're picking up in the neighborhood, and it's a little hard to estimate because of the time frame of the span from one year to the other. But we average about 1,500 to 2,000 new houses a year that we put on the roll.
So we're growing, and then you would come back to this commission and say, I've got this amount of increased workload. I need X number of new employees, plus benefits, plus vehicle to go out and make the appraisal. It's kind of like McDonald's. McDonald's is getting rid of people, and so is Taco Bell. Is going down to computers of robots that are going to be flipping hamburgers. So do you see this as a way of not increasing the size of your employee pool?
Absolutely, and we've decreased the size.
This would actually be cheaper than what? How many people for $90,000? 3, 4 people, 2 people?
Probably
Benefits that hard?
It would depend on the experience level, and you cannot bring an entry-level person in and expect them to be able to value property effectively for several years or more. It just takes a long time to train someone up to be able to value properties in the $200,000 to $600,000 range across the county in a shortened time frame. So as we're growing in value and number of parcels and the lack of experience on the personnel that we have, that's an extreme challenge right now. And these analytical tools give us a little bit of an advantage in being more accurate throughout the county. And the next revaluation is for 22. We'll be starting early or late 2020 on revaluing the entire county. To put things in perspective, we review about 30,000 parcels a year going into the revaluation, so you can imagine how much time that takes to review each parcel, each improvement, and make sure that we haven't missed anything, that we haven't included or excluded something. We go through that every time, and then we do the revaluation in that 4th year to determine values throughout the county. And as the county's growing and there's hot spots, and it becomes more difficult. So.
And the same assessors that we have picking up those 1,500 houses are also the ones that are doing the review, because we have to review what's already there to make sure the information is still accurate. And then they're also the ones that are judging for quality. So it is a very heavy workload, and we're actually doing what we're doing right now with fewer people than we had in the office in 2008. The only way we've been able to do that was by leveraging technology to allow us to work more efficiently, to get that done. I wish we could have had Spatialist and their tool set earlier. Montgomery County's assessor, when he found out that we didn't have it yet, he was incredulous. He says, I don't know how you do your job without this tool, because we couldn't.
Rob, when you asked how much was it going to cost, and you said, well, it depends on how much I buy. So does this 80,000 get you everything, or?
Whole tamale? Is that the whole tamale?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
So what's a half a tamale?
A Tom?
So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion that we forward this to budget with a positive recommendation.
Got a
motion, do I hear a second on it?
Second. Let's get potentially new money or just
Well, I think
deal with
that
that.
we can bring a physical note, maybe is it within your budget or?
I don't have that full amount in my budget, but I had negotiated a contract with our camera provider that should assist us a long way toward getting there.
And I think the budget committee can, find this money if it's to be found.
And you want to do it mid-year and get training?
Yes, and I think that, sometimes you have to spend money to save money. And I think this probably is a situation where our biggest cost, if you think about it, is personnel. And so how much personnel costs can we save in the next, say, 5 years or 4 years that, we have to spend a little money now to save those costs.
And specialist is the appropriate vendor. You vetted other vendors.
Yes. There are other vendors that do similar jobs and do similar tasks. They don't do it as efficiently or as effectively.
Where else are you in Tennessee?
Davidson, just north of here, Montgomery, Loudon, Shelby. We're highly engaged with them. We haven't closed the deal yet.
Oh, you mentioned that last year.
That's
right.
This is.
Okay.
I've been asking for it.
So most of the metro areas, Shelby's looking at us, and so's Williamson. Anything, and so's Knox. Some of the stuff that we've had to wait on is those counties are changing their infrastructural piece, their big, Rob calls it a CAMA system, their parcel management piece. We have to wait until all of that finishes before we do the cool analytical pieces on top of that.
We're already there with your...
He's already there.
Our camera system is partnered with their company.
Yeah. And even though I've got a funny accent, we're actually headquartered here in Florida. So anybody who's going to be working with Rob is going to be from here.
I've been trying to get him to move to Murfreesboro.
Commissioner Gannon, I think, got a couple of questions.
I agree with Mr. Goose. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money, whatever. So this will probably, since technology and everything, probably negate hiring 2 people or whatever, or so.
Commissioner Gannon, you got a couple of questions.
Patent, is that your patent, or? I want to make sure patents are straightened.
Yeah, it's the company's patent. We filed it over here. It's very difficult to file a technology and a software patent anywhere but in the US, so that was good. And yes, it makes the software unique, which means that I joked with Rob one other time. Some of his IT people had showed this, and they'd say, "Wow, we're pretty sure we could build this." And I kind of chuckled, and the guy says, "What do you think?" And I said, "I don't think you'll be able to build it. We've been doing this for 20 years. Plus, we've got a patent on it, so I'm going to sue your ass."
My other question was, since you brought up IT, how much would IT be involved much, or would they have to be involved much?
Not really.
Not really.
We do most of the heavy lifting. The IT piece is really a facilitatory piece by ensuring that they're comfortable with what we need to do. Some of the stuff that we need to do, for example, is grab the data and push it online. We just need to make sure that we follow any IT protocol, which we're happy to do. So IT don't really have to do anything. We'll
just want to make sure there's a good communication there.
Yeah.
It will be user-friendly to the citizens of Rutherford County?
That's the plan, sir. Everything I've shown you here is citizen-facing. And we find, for example, this particular product, so El Paso County is the biggest county in Colorado with 300 and some thousand parcels. They're seeing double-digit up to maybe 20% growth in some urban areas and some residential prices. So they were expecting in this past year huge increases in appeals. We did a citizen engagement process where we showed them some of this stuff, we showed them growth, and we did town hall meetings essentially. And then we gave them this, so that if they wanted to appeal, they could have a look around to see what the market actually was. But we were able to monitor this, and we saw about 50 to 60% of people that came on intending to file a protest or appeal came out without doing so. So they ended up with less than 5,000 appeals in a year, where some of the areas were almost a 20% increase since a 2-year cycle. So it's the visibility, I think, that really lends itself to the citizens.
Appeal process.
Yeah. I think transparency is a big thing. If you can inform the taxpayers, and it's not, people don't like surprises, especially when it comes to their property taxes and their values. I think the more we can get ahead of it and explain things to people, the more accepting of the change they're going to be when it gets there, because it's not a surprise, and they've been invited into the process with seeing not only what their values are doing, but what their neighbors' values are doing in the market and where the money's being spent. I think that's a huge step forward, you know, as far as citizen engagement, is being able to do that. And, you know, here it is.
Commissioner Johnson?
This is personal, but you're definitely not from the South. Where are you from?
I'm from right up on the north coast, up near where the Giants Causeway is, or Bushmills Distillery. I'm about 4 miles from Bushmills Distillery. But I live on the ocean. But I'm 10 months a year here.
Are you entertaining the idea maybe to move here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. You need to learn how to say y'all then.
Well, I have been known to say that after a few.
I would have bet you were from Ireland or somewhere.
You did say Ireland. I'm sorry.
Hey, I don't have my hearing aids in.
He is from Ireland.
Yeah.
Trained know very well.
Well, I mean, you.
I think what you're saying is very interesting, and I was, this month, you speaking in Florida, I found out that there was a person who did some research for the real estate for me to put on the market down there. So they did the research on it, and I have an idea they had something similar to this.
I wouldn't, it depends on where it was. We have a lot of clients in Florida. But yes, like we do find that, for example, there'll be a lot of casual users who are interested in this. People like you who want to see what their property might be worth if they take it to market. There might be a lot of people who would look at it from an appeal standpoint. What is my house worth in terms of, you know, is it as, you know, do I have the same idea as Rob has? But there's a level of users that is exponentially greater, which is the professional users. We find that when we push this live, every realtor in the county is using this. So for example, El Paso, this one I'm seeing, their website gets up to 30 million hits a year. And that's not just citizens, that's professional users hitting it and doing just exactly what you've said. Again, why not share it with people? You know, realtors are the public too.
We got a realtor right here.
Okay, there we go.
So it's real-time information.
Yes.
Based on his data, compared to Zillow.
Well, the difference between...
Which is not.
Yeah. And that's the
Don't
big...
bring up,
Yeah, Mr. Sandlin was in the real estate and auction business, and he didn't like him because he was getting several phone calls on a piece of property that had been sold for over a year, right? And had his name still listed on it. You know, before he came to
Call
work.
question.
Any more questions? Call for a question?
Yeah. Please do.
You want to read the motion since we discussed it?
Forward the proposal of
Spatialist?
to the budget committee with a positive recommendation.
Okay, call the roll.
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Jernigan?
It's not here.
Gammon?
Yes.
Sorry, Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah.
And Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes. Okay,
Is there any other business to come
Thank you
before the
very much.
committee?
Thank you.
Any other business to come before the committee tonight? Trey?
North
I don't have any business, Mr. Chairman.
Don't entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, sir.